If you try and tell people to click 5 links, you know what's going to happen? They'll click 0. Number one, I didn't really know that much about lawyers, so there's a lot of guessing. And reason number 2 is they have no idea who the fuck I was. If you're interested in getting something like that for you built, we can do it for you. So that's a case study. What's up? What's up? What's up? All right, all right, all right. We're live. Back for another edition. Frank is back with a brand new edition. Agency Q&A up in the house. This is why I'm not a rapper, just so you guys know. Quick little announcements before we get rocking and rolling. For some of you guys who've seen, we have announced officially the self-paced version of Loom. And a lot of you guys are really interested in, there's a deeper idea behind this, okay? So for many of us, the hardest part of the business is the sales. And I've said if you make your offer do the selling and not your selling, suddenly leverage and scale is possible. I used the analogy the other day. Imagine McDonald's tried to train every pimply-faced teenager how to become a master of selling. I mean, I'm sure it can be done, but like they don't depend on that. They know if they just make the offer do the selling, you can put on the sign, "We got a 99-cent McDealio, come in for that." And they let the offer do the selling, and then what ends up happening is they can sell it through a billboard, and then they don't depend on these awesome, amazing salespeople. So for those of you guys who've been thinking about going phoneless, I'll put a link to that below if I can find that real quick for you. Let's see if I can find my own stuff. There we go. And the deeper idea behind it that I want you guys to really, really consider is that you can actually have a leverageable agency, right? Like if your sales can be done through video, if your delivery can be done through people, if all of that can be done at scale, what happens is you can actually like take yourself out of your own agency. And there's a real magic that happens when, and I learned actually some of my best stuff from lawyers. I remember what really, really got my brain churning was there was a lawyer named Matt Dubin in Seattle, and he told me there's nothing quite like it. I leave for the weekend and I come back and we signed 8 clients. And he's like, and it's amazing other people are delivering it. That's the kind of thing that this kind of is the beginning of unlocking it, which is leverage, which is instead of getting out of the sales and the hustle and the grind and the chasing people, is to allow people to watch videos and come to you, and they convert better. I wish I would have known that. And the other thing people tell me is like, well, what kind of people will come through this? And in my experience, it's different than I thought it would be. It's actually a higher caliber of person, because a lot of people just won't jump on the phone with you, busy, successful people, just to find out how much is it, like how does it work. And if you can put that in a video, like it's the 80-20 of a sales call, they'll just hire you for that. So if you guys are interested, I put a link for that. Check that out. Other than that, let's get into the good stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Frankie Finn proudly brings you our weekly Q&A. Ba-dum-bum. You guys are building some awesome businesses. I'm just throwing that out there. Like, we have a high caliber person in this community, and that's kind of amazing to me. I never planned to have the coolest people, but we really do have the coolest people. Ali's up first, says, "Hi all. I'm running a campaign on Facebook. My goal for the campaign is to have people click on my link, which will take them to the page. On the page, there are 5 action buttons. When they click on one of them, another page opens up. After that, another page opens up. The conversion happens when a lead visits the last of those 3 pages. In between, we're not capturing any email or personal details. We're just straightforward routing the traffic. I'm wondering which campaign objective would work best for this kind of scenario on Facebook. I've already created a lead campaign, but it was getting expensive. I also created a traffic campaign with link clicks and page views. This campaign generated a good amount of clicks, but visitors were not reaching the end page where the actual conversion happens. I also tried an engagement campaign and a conversion campaign, but they did not work well. Please suggest the best way to approach this." Ali, I'm often the bearer of bad news for a lot of people. I'm going to be the bearer of bad news for you. Okay, your question as asked implies that the reason your campaign is not working is because of your campaign objective. And very, very rarely is it just as simple as if you change the campaign objective and you like you put a different kind of traffic in there, suddenly the offer starts converting. I'll tell you what jumps out at me. Okay, I've done a lot of testing with this. I'm not saying I have everything figured out. I certainly don't. But we've spent probably a few $100,000 of our own money testing Facebook ads. I've also managed like millions and millions of dollars on behalf of clients. And I'll tell you, when you say we have 5 different things they can do on a page, there's an example where a confused mind does nothing. If you try and tell people to click 5 links, you know what's going to happen? They'll click 0, in my experience. And on top of that, the other thing is 80/20 says one of those suggestions, one of those calls to action is going to work better than the other 4 of them combined. And so what I would suggest is start with testing the basic offer. Instead of trying to drive somebody to a page and then giving them 5 options and then another page and another page, instead of trying to do all that in a single leap and bound, just sell them on one idea. If you're trying to sell 5 ideas at once, you'll find it's very normal. I've seen this before. Anybody been to a restaurant that has like a really big menu? It's fucking overwhelming to decide. Compare that to, like, have you ever been to a place that does like fresh and local and they got like 4 things on the menu? It's pretty easy to decide, isn't it, right? Because less options, this is counterintuitive, convert more. I know you want to respect the intelligence of your customer and all those things. So what happens is you give them a lot of options, but what ends up happening is they pick none. So if you got 5 calls to action, I would test each of those as an individual page. And what you will inevitably find is one of those works better than the other 5, and therefore you don't really need the other 4. So get clarity about what you're actually offering and offer one thing at a time. One ad, one offer at a time. You can run as many tests as you want, but one ad and one offer at a time. If you try and sell 5 things, you're going to sell 0. I don't care what it is. If somebody comes into a car dealership and you say, we have 600 cars, come and pick, you're just going to overwhelm them. But if you say, hey, we're running a special right now, you can get a brand new Ford Mustang for 3 payments of $399 a month, you're going to have better success on that ad. So don't try and sell folks 5 things and test one offer at a time. And don't worry so much about the campaign objectives. Worry more about the human on the other side. I wish more people understood this. Psychology before technology. Don't get obsessed with all the buttons and the whistles in Facebook. Think about who you're actually trying to run ads to on the other side, and you'll find the stuff works amazingly, amazingly well. All right, Johnny's up. Johnny says, if a business is already ranking on both Google Maps and organic search for keywords like bathroom remodeling, Springfield, Alabama, and they're getting a lot of traffic to their website, what would be the reason they're not getting many calls? I'll illustrate this with a story, Johnny, because I've been in that situation. I actually remember I was working for this doctor in Beverly Hills, and he's a relatively famous doctor who had been on a TV show called Dr. 90210. And I was working as a white label provider, so I was doing his SEO, and there was a guy who used to sell him the website, and we went in to meet with the guy together, and I was getting the guy, I did the math, we were getting him about 5,000-6,000 visitors a month in free traffic, and that was all in a span of like 3-4 months, and in Beverly Hills, which was a super competitive market, and I remember doing the math, and I was like, if he was doing that in pay-per-click, he would spend 300 grand a month on that pay-per-click traffic. So we went into his office in there, and I was expecting like kind of the hero's welcome, because I'm like, I'm bringing you all this business. Look how awesome I am. That was my thinking at the time. And he looked at us and he closed the door and he said, well, let's just get to it. He said, I'm not getting any phone calls right now, and if I have to go with someone else, I'm going to go with someone else because I need the phone to ring. And it was kind of shocking to me, and I didn't want to throw my white label provider under the bus, but we were getting loads of free traffic, and it simply wasn't converting at the actual website. And so usually what converts at a website, by the way, and he ran these beautiful magazine-looking websites that were fucking boring as a motherfucker, right? And so usually in those kind of niches, what sells your stuff better than anything else are like 3 things. Before and after pictures, reviews, social proof, testimonials, and a fucking offer, right? Like, hey, we'll get you a brand new kitchen for $399.99 and if you buy this exact model or something like that, right? So, or if you're doing it in a more affluent area, like, you know, a more like luxury, high-end kind of offer. But what you don't want to do is miss those 3 things. So before and after pictures, like demonstrations of their work, proof, that like they are who they say they are, and then an offer. If you nail those three things, the traffic will start converting. But a lot of times what they do is they just have boring websites. And most websites, by the way, are just like glorified business cards. What's on a business card? Company name, we do blank, blank, and blank, call us. That's like 90% of the websites in existence. Company name, we do blank, blank, and blank, call us. And that's why most websites don't convert, because they're just glorified business cards. Um, so Habe says, I run a white label agency. Should I niche down to white label gym marketing, dentist marketing, or just lead gen is niched enough? Um, so I think most people misunderstand what a niche is. The reason why you want to niche that down to one of those, and honestly, it doesn't really matter whether you pick gyms or dentists, is because one is you can make your messaging on point. That's reason number one, is because like if you're speaking to anybody and everybody, I'll give you an example of this, okay? So try and write an ad in your mind right now for or for an athlete, okay? Why don't you think of an ad that you need to write for an athlete? I don't know about you, but like that's a tough to write ad. Like I don't know what to say. But if I say write an ad for a left-handed golfer with a slice, okay? The ad almost writes itself, right? Dear left-handed golfer with a slice, right? So the first reason we pick a niche is because it allows our messaging to be meaningful and on point. And then the second reason, and not enough people think of this, I certainly didn't think of this for the first like 7, 10 years of my agency life, is you want to make it so that whatever you deliver can be done again and again and again and again at scale. In other words, it's like copy and paste, rinse and repeat, and like be able to do it again. So like basically what works for one dentist works for another dentist. If you have a process for creating great dentistry articles, you can use that same process for one client as another. If you have a process for getting all the name, address, and phone number, the citations for one dentist, it's going to be the same process for another dentist, right? So that's the idea. So the truth is, it doesn't matter. I would say like general lead generation is probably not enough. But I would pick one of those, like either gyms, dentists, doesn't really matter, but make your messaging on point and make your delivery on point, and suddenly you'll become like a really high value agency provider in that space, because that's the real key, is your messaging gets on point and your delivery gets easier. Um, we got Nabel here, says, I want to start an outsourcing business to help out digital marketing agencies. I'm aiming to provide fully functional teams, individuals performing daily tasks assigned by agencies, ensuring faster delivery and cost effectiveness. What route should I select to go get my first client in the following? Networking, social media communities, cold email, cold pitches, listed on Google Maps, any other tested route solutions we are planning to offer, complete graphics and web design, storyboarding, animations and editing, customer support, and virtual assistance. Any suggestions that will be highly appreciated. Nabel, I'm going to give you a counterintuitive backwards advice. What's up? Our man Derek's here. Good seeing you, brother. Um, so this is different than what most people think, okay? Businesses have to be market driven and not owner driven. So I'll give you an example of what I mean by that, okay? My home city, and I've probably beaten this story to death for some of you guys who've heard this before, but my home city of Windsor, Ontario, Canada has like really awesome pizza places, don't ask me why, and a shit ton of auto body shops. And I think the reason most auto body shops exist is because a guy got tired of working for someone else, said, I'm going to start my own shop. But there was no place in the market where they said, you know what we need is another auto body shop. So that's like an owner-driven business, okay? A market-driven business. I was sitting with my brother, and he ordered Chinese food. And there was a whole hoopla. Him and his wife were having a fight. The Chinese food comes to the door. About 5 minutes later, the Chinese food guy, the delivery guy, knocks on the door again, and he points outside. And he had backed up his car. I don't know, maybe he was texting or whatever. He backed up into my brother's car, and in hitting my brother's car, that was parked, by the way. It rolled into my girlfriend's car, and she had a Volkswagen Beetle. She always said like her dream car is a Volkswagen Beetle. And the insurance company said, go get 3 quotes. Well, we went to 3 different auto body shops, of which there are many, and they all said, we don't work on Volkswagens because they're too complex and they have specialty parts. And they all recommended a guy in the ghetto, by the way, who only worked on Volkswagens, and he said, I'm busy for like 2 weeks, but I'll get to it. And he had so much work that he was backed up for 2 weeks. So I'll give you one more story that illustrates this point, okay? There's a dude, I forget the guy's name, he's a billionaire today, And how he became a billionaire is he went to one of the big grocery store chains. Let's say it was Meijer. I don't actually know. But he went to Meijer or someplace like it. And he asked the manager, like, what are people always asking for that you can't provide? And the guy said, key duplication. So he started a key duplication business, and he went inside there and asked them, "Can I set up a little kiosk inside and duplicate keys?" And they said, "Yes, please. People are always asking for it." And of course, it blew up, and they sold a gazillion key duplications. Now, also, this was a service that people wanted all over because it wasn't the only Meyer with that issue. So what happens is when people ask the question, "I can do A, B, and C. Which one of these should I offer?" And it's the wrong question to be starting with. The better question is if you're going to sell like solutions to agency owners, find out what they're stuck on and what they would need help with, right? Like if you ask somebody, like a good question to ask is like, what's on your plate now that you wish you could get rid of? And if they say graphic design, then you should start a graphic design. But what you shouldn't do is try and figure out methods, because people assume the reason they're failing is because it's the wrong method. And almost always it's because nobody wants the fucking offer to begin with, right? Like a lot of businesses, I heard Jeff Miller talking about this the other day, a lot of businesses shouldn't exist in the fucking first place. Meaning they create products and services that nobody needs. I see this right now. How many of you guys get pitched like a gazillion, I'm going to get you a gazillion booked appointments. Do you wake up like wondering where you're going to find the booked appointment pros? I don't, right? There's a gazillion of them. And that's because the owner of the business said, hey, I'm going to start a booked appointment. But he didn't look at the market and see where they're actually getting stuck. So my suggestion to you is before you come up with your service, like spend a few hours and read where agency owners get stuck, and ask some questions and have a few conversations and build your service out of that, and inevitably it'll be better than anything you'll come up with because it'll be a market-driven business. The Volkswagen guy is fucking busier than fuck. The typical auto body agency owner struggles sitting going, how am I going to get any customers? Because the idea wasn't needed in the market to begin with. So I know that's harsh, but I'm telling you, if you just do that as step one, you'll make your life easier. Derek says, how to price marketing services with ad spend included. Feel uncomfortable asking for the retainer plus ad spend. This is a two-part thing, Derek, okay? So I'm going to give you first a suggestion about the feel uncomfortable. And I'll tell you, I've said this before, but not a lot of people understand this. Like 99% of the people who start a digital marketing agency, we grew up poor or middle class. Like trust fund babies do not go run Facebook ads for people. It just doesn't work that way. Like this is not a business you get into if you're like a trust fund baby and you always had $1 million and you could go do anything you want. It's like it's the gateway to freedom for someone. And so a lot of us bring money hang-ups. And I'll give you an example of this, how this showed up for me. There used to be a handicapped guy who lived in our complex. His name was Richard. I grew up in like a townhouse kind of complex. That's the longest I ever lived in one place. We were there like, I don't know, like 10, 15 years kind of thing. And whenever this guy would get up and mow his lawn, you could tell he was physically struggling with it. So my mom would like hit me and my brother over the head and be like, you could hit kids back in those days, and she would say, hey, Frankie, Jordan, go mow Richard's lawn. It was like hot as fuck in the summer, and we go mow his lawn. And at the end of it, Richard would always try to give us $20. And we treated the act of receiving money like it was dirty. Like it is like, no, I can't. I feel uncomfortable. Like, no. My mom refused most times, and so every now and then, like Richard could slip us $20 if he really, really insisted. But most times we just did it for free, and that's how most agency owners handle the transaction of money. It's like, ooh, I feel icky. Now I want you to understand, money is just value exchange. And one of the easiest things that will make your value exchange easier is when you bring up the conversation of money, just add in this magic phrase and say, and for that, you will get. Okay? So if I tell you there's a car for sale for $5,000, that's not a deal. That's not a ripoff. It's not either. It depends on which kind of car you're going to get for it. There's a value exchange, right? If I say to you, well, I got a 1972 used Hyundai that barely fucking runs and it's rusted to shit, like you're going to run. You're not going to buy that for $5,000. But if I say, I got a $5,000 car and for that you're going to get my wife's brand new Porsche 911 Turbo. She cheated on me, so I'm selling this $250,000 car for $5,000. First one to get here is getting this car. You're gonna like sprint over with $5,000 in hand, like get me this car, right? So the key with that is when the subject of price comes up and it's like, hey, it's $2,000 a month, it's $5,000 a month, it's $10,000, whatever your price is. add in this phrase, and for that you will typically get blank, whatever your deliverable is. For most of you guys, you want to fill that blank with an outcome. If you do that, the money exchange won't feel so dirty anymore. The car costs $5,000, and for that, you will get a brand new 911 Turbo. Like, that changes the whole dynamic of the situation. If you just say the car costs $5,000, it'll feel like a take. But if you contextualize it with what you're giving, the whole thing will get easier. Now, as far as how to price marketing services with ad spend included, this is like a kind of a loaded question because it depends a lot on who you do it for. and I found this, like, if I do SEO for like a single lawyer, like 500 to $2,000 is probably going to be like per month is what I'm going to max out. If I do it for a 100-person law firm that has like 5 satellite offices, like it's going to be at least $5,000, probably 10, maybe even $20,000 a month. Believe that? We got a few folks in this group right now, by the way, that I know personally that are charging $20,000 a month for SEO. If you can wrap your head around that, crazy but true. So the answer to that is, how do you price it? It depends who you do it for, but one of the easiest ways to find out is just to say, like, if we could do outcome for you, what would that be worth to you? Now, having said that, price, nobody will tell you this when you get into it. Price is flexible, largely based on how confident you are when you can deliver. And everybody thinks what the secret to this is to acquire some like superhuman confidence that you don't fucking have in the beginning. In the beginning, all you fucking have is uncertainty that your shit is going to work, right? But what happens is, like, for me, the first time I charged for SEO, I charged $400 per month. Why? It was a psychologically satisfying number. That was it. That was the only reason. It's just like, it seemed good to me. And then I remember I jumped on a call with a plastic surgeon, and he said, "You've tripled my practice and made me a couple $1 million." Like, he didn't say it like just like blurted out like that, but it was kind of like in the conversation. And then I quickly raised my price. It went up from $400 to $1,200 overnight, because I realized, like, holy shit, this stuff works. And so confidence is acquired over time, and so price is flexible. So what I would suggest is, like, when you're unsure, as much as possible, just say, like, if we could put, like, this outcome in your hands, like in your case, like if we could get you 100 group parties booked for your restaurant in the next 3 months, like, what would that be worth to you? And let them set the pricing, and understand the more and more you see your system work, the more and more confident you are, the more and more you charge. But having said that, like, it's price has actually the biggest variable is just who you do it for. Danny says, your 90-day case study you mentioned, you were not going to place ads, as most people don't have that. However, if you have $200 for ads, what will you do? I'm actually probably going to do like 50 or $100 in there in that actual case study, Danny. And what I do is I cherry pick lists of direct mail people. I get these lists manually, so I'll literally go through and I'll find people who are spending money on Google Ads today. How do I know they have money? How do I know they buy shoes? Because they're spending money today. Like, I don't guess on that fact. And by the way, my experience is they're buying Google Ads, they're also buying websites, they're buying SEO, they're buying radio, they're doing in-person stuff. The people, like 80-20, people who buy a little bit of shoes buy a lot of bit of shoes. We had this conversation the other day about books. I asked people, how many books do you own? Nobody in this group, by the way, said I own one book. Right? We're all habitual book buyers, and you don't buy books at all. But if you buy business and marketing and personal development and leadership and management books, you buy a lot of them, or none at all, right? Like, that's just how the game works. And so what I do is I identify those people, and then I just send them a hand raiser by direct mail, a summary of the offer. If we could do blank for you, would you be interested in that? And then they raise their hand, and sales conversations are initiated. We've actually had success, by the way, with direct mail, picking up clients for $5 US. I'm not saying everybody will do that, but if you understand the game and you can make like really bitchin' hand raisers, $5, man. Can't beat that. And the reason I use direct mail is because nobody else does it. Tim Ferriss had in the book Tools of Titans. There's a middle section, and he says, everybody's looking for great answers. What I look for are great questions, because great questions are reusable. And I find if I ask myself great questions over time, they'll produce great answers. And one of the great questions in his 17 great questions was, what is the least crowded channel? And so what everyone else thinks about when trying to drum up business and clients is they think about, like, what's cheap, what's free, what can I do today? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But if you think about like cheapest free, and it's almost always the most crowded, right? Like, why do people send so many cold emails? Because it's fucking free. You can. Why do people send so much LinkedIn? How often do you get a letter in the mail that's personalized to you these days? Like almost never. So I do it intentionally because it's the least crowded channel. And if somebody taught a course and said everybody should do direct mail, and all of a sudden there was hundreds and hundreds of people saying direct mail, I would zig again, and I would ask myself the same question: what's the least crowded channel, and go there. But for now, my favorite way to get clients like super cheap on budgets is direct mail. It just works, man. It just really works because nobody else does it. Vincent says, built a seven-figure chiro agency from 2018 to 2020. Then COVID hit, plus other circumstances. Fast forward to 2023. There's now 9,000 blah 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 agencies chasing my profession of DCs. It's absolutely insane. So we created a new agency called Faith Driven Marketing, and after consulting with well over 5,000 chiros in the past 15 years, we are struggling to build a lead gen system to get chiropractors to book a 15-minute call with us. We have a team that can deliver the goods. Obviously, we know the Facebook ad platform and algorithm has changed since 2018, but there are plenty of docs I know dialed in, spending 2 to 4 times what they spent in 2018, yet are working with agencies still helping chiros kill it. We will get back there for sure. It's all about results and ROI. It's always about results and ROI. I bet you said that twice, my man. Vincent, so you have an advantage. Okay, I'm going to just see if I can tag you here. For some reason, it's not letting me tag folks today. I don't know what's up with that. Ah, there we go. No, still didn't work. I can click your name and nothing happens. So anyways, Vincent, on that front, since I can't tag you right now, here's the deal: is like offers. By the way, 100% of offers. This is what they will do over time. I know everybody thinks you're looking for this holy grail, but this is why I'm so big on learning the skill, because you can create offers like as many as you want, as often as you want. If you understand the skill, it's more powerful than having a great offer. Like if you gave me a choice between give me one great performing $1 million offer right now and the skill, I'll take the skill. And it sounds counterintuitive, but that $1 million offer will eventually stop working. If you have the skill, you can create endless numbers of them. So having said that, you're at an advantage. So like this is a normal thing. I see this when markets get super saturated and the messages get copycatted. Is your seduction sequences are now going to get longer because of the fact that your market's just got a lot of noise in it. But you have an advantage what nobody else has is that you've been doing this 15 years and you can show shit tons of examples of your stuff working. So I would hammer your market with case studies, like religiously just hammer them with like we're the real deal. So I would take like 20, 30, 40 different chiros you've done it for and just blast them, and what will happen is you guys will stand out from the noise and nobody will be able to compete with that because they can't show chiropractor after chiropractor after chiropractor after chiropractor that you've helped. If you have them, case studies just work really well, especially if you have multiple of them. If you can afford to like run those over time, what will happen is, and when I say over time, I mean like 6 months. Most agencies can't think of 6 months. But I experienced this when I first started advertising in the lawyer space. In the beginning, there wasn't an ad I could write that worked for two reasons. Reason number one, I didn't really know that much about lawyers, so there's a lot of guessing. And reason number two is they had no idea who the fuck I was. But what happened is after 6 months, we had tried so many things, and they had seen our ads so many times. It was almost like an email nurture sequence where the ads don't operate in a vacuum. A lot of you guys have experienced this with people like Sam Ovens. Sam Ovens has like a gazillion ads, and it's almost like retargeting sequences where you know who he is before you see the ad. And so you get this cumulative effect of like a brand gets built. And if you do that with case studies and you can afford to do it for 6 months, you'll make all the calls come to you because they'll all know who you are and they'll all know you're the real deal. Danny says, when you're selling a white label service provided by someone else, what profit margin are you trying to get? How do you decide on the first date offer when having someone else do the main service? And also, how do you put together a case study? White label, I personally, and I'm not saying this is like the holy grail, but I look for 50-50. So if they sell it to me at $800 a month, then I'm going to pimp it out at 1,600. If it's 1,000 a month, then I'm looking to sell it for 1,000. If it's 1,500, I'm going to sell it for 3. I usually just try and keep it simple and look for like double margins. Especially if I'm doing zero, like absolute zero as a delivery, I'm happy to make 50% and do nothing. How do you decide on the first date offer when having someone else do the main service? First date offers are less about like your white label provider and more about thinking about like what will move the needle for the client relatively quickly. So I'll give you an example of what we're doing in this 90-day case study. I had a talk with Lane, who is our white label provider, and I said, who does this work the best for? And we got an idea of a few niches, and then he said, and then I said, who are the best people to pick? And he said, the best people have at least a couple of keywords in positions 4, 5, and 6, because almost always we can do a few things to bump them up into the Google My Business, and then they start getting phone calls like almost right away. And if they're in 4, 5, and 6, we can often do it in like 30 days. So you can take somebody who's like not getting phone calls in the 5 spot, and then bump them to number 2 in the My Business listing, and then all of a sudden, like the phone is ringing and your shit is working. So the first date offer is like based out of that. It's based out of the client situation. It's like, hey, you're number 5. Just give me 30 days on this one keyword, and I'll show you that I can get you like in the Google My Business and actually get you business. So you want to think about first dates. And this is, by the way, first date offer. This is psychology that works in all relationships, right? I often use dating and relationship examples because they're the same kind of thing. So like if you think about this, if you walked up to a strange woman and said to her, hey, you look beautiful, I want to marry you, even though she may like you and she may find you interesting, you're probably going to get a lot of no's just on the basis of that. That's too big of a commitment. I'm not ready to move in with you and you know, have a house. And the only people who say yes to that are usually crazy, right? So it's much better to lead with what. This is the offer trifecta you want to nail in your business. Okay, one is what I call coffee date. Coffee date is like their way of just feeling you out and getting a little more information on who you are and what your company does. Coffee dates are usually like 15, 20 minutes, and they work super fast. So coffee date in the real world is like, hey, you seem kind of cool. Can I take you for a coffee 10 minutes up the road? There's a beautiful like ocean view. They got a nice little carrot cake, and I'd love to just get to know you a little bit. And that works better as an intro than I want to marry you. Then there's what I call the first date, which is starting to work together. In first dates, what you want to do is usually keep to like maximum 90 days, ideally less than 7. The idea of a first date is you design your first dates intentionally so they lead into more. Like if you have a really good first date with a relationship partner, like kind of they're automatically going to want dates 2, 3, and 4. So you engineer on purpose a good first date. If you nail those 3 offers in your business, the coffee date, the first date, and the marriage, like you'll have endless amounts of business in any market, and you can like turn it off and on. Well, man, Cole, a little late to the party, but I'm excited to see you, man. And how do you put together a case study? So understand, Danny, we have some templates, by the way, in the mastermind area that you can grab. They are under the automations and stuff that we've set up for you guys. But a case study, the case study and a testimonial are very similar. The difference between a case study and a testimonial is a testimonial, somebody stands there and endorses your business. So I tried Frankie Friend's service and they're the greatest thing I've ever done in my life. That's a testimonial. A case study is when you turn a client situation into a teaching example. And the difference between, by the way, a testimonial and a case study is you don't have to wait for the client to give it to you. So I would say, like, for example, this is Danny. Here was Danny's situation. Danny was struggling with blank. We tried these things. 3 or 4 of them didn't work, but this one thing worked really well. Here's what we did. Here's how that worked. Here are the end results. If you're interested in getting a situation like that built for you, then we can do something similar. If you're in a situation similar to Danny and you'd like us to build that, that's what you do. So a case study has a very specific format. It's just telling a story. You introduce the client, you introduce their problem, you introduce what they were stuck on, you introduce what you tried, you tell them the truth about what worked and what didn't, you tell them what the end results were, and then you say, if you're interested in getting something like that for you built, we can do it for you. So that's a case study, and you have endless number of those where you can show examples. So by the way, like this is an advanced strategy, but often I'll do case studies for like influencers in order to like really expand my shit in the way that like Justin Brooke told me. He reached out to Russell Brunson and said, like, I have this Facebook ad idea for you. Let me run it and show you it works. And then when it worked, Russell Brunson was his case study. And imagine how much easier it is to sell Facebook ads when you're like, Russell Brunson is my client. He could have anybody. He could have the best. And of course, he did it for free for him. So I know it's a little counterintuitive. People tell you not to do it for free. But if you're doing it for like a hardcore major industry player, I actually think it's a really smart move. Red Handled says, when I walk up to stranger women, I say, did I see you on Ashley Madison? There you go. She says, yes, you're in business. There's an advanced concept on that, by the way, which is, in his case, he's making a little bit of a dirty joke, but if you're looking for buyers, trust behavior, right? If he's looking for a woman who's kind of open for a sexual relationship, that is a behavior indicator, right? In the same way that I don't look for clients who have never spent money on ads and try and convince them. I look for people who have behavior indications that they're spending money now, right now, not in the future. Like, if I can't find any evidence they're spending money now, it doesn't make sense to try and convince them. Neil says, the long-term asset. I'm not quite sure of the pitch. Let me take your database and create a group, then I can offer them things forever. What does your client stay involved or get a benefit? So assets are a deeper topic. For those of you guys who don't understand, I wrote about this in the book, and it is the idea between the longer you do this, the more you want to think about your business like an investor and less like a service provider. A service provider, in many ways, is very similar to like an employee. It's like, boss, please give me some monies and I will do this good work for you. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It works. But when you become an investor, by the way, the richest guy I know in my hometown was this guy I used to work with doing apartment buildings, and his name is Franco. He's this old Italian guy. He's probably dead by now, although I don't know for certain. I haven't talked to him 10, 15 years. But he was like 80 at the time, so I'd be surprised if he's still kicking. But Franco was rich because he owned 7 apartment buildings and a golf course. Okay, so why was he rich? Because he owned 7 apartment buildings and a golf course, right? Not because he had like the best service and all those things. Like, his wealth came from assets he owned. This is how all wealth works in the real world. And most people don't understand that there are also digital assets. Like, when you guys work with clients, you are building digital assets. And because people don't understand this, they don't reuse and recycle and redistribute and repurpose digital assets. So I'll give you a small example of this, okay? Actually, let me first illustrate how important assets are. So if I ask people this question all the time, if I could give you a choice, I'm going to hand you right now a client who will pay you $2,500 per month for Facebook ads, or I will hand you a system that clients are paying $2,500 per month, and you will own the system. Would you rather have the client and the cash right now, or would you rather own the repeatable system? If you're smart, by the way, you'll say the system, because the system is an asset, right? It's a repeatable way of doing things. All the time I see people where they'll run ads for like a plumber, and after like 3-4 months, they figure out how to get consistent phone calls for the plumber, and then what ends up happening is they go looking for another Google Ads client, or a website design client, or an e-commerce store, not realizing like the system you created for the plumber is reusable for like 1,000 other plumbers. And so you want to lease your assets. And so it's a very different pitch when you go up to somebody and say, please, will you give me money for this service, versus I have this asset that's already working. It's already getting phone calls. It's already doing everything you want for a plumber. What I would like to do is put that into your business, plug and play, and make your phone ring, and I would lease my assets to you. That's what happens when you think like an investor. So having said that, the number one reason, and this is a question I get a lot, Neil, is like, why would somebody just turn over an asset to you? And the answer to that is almost always because if you understand what they're doing with that asset now, the answer to that question is 0. So I just made a couple of pitches to take over some Facebook groups, and they were very easy pitches to make, because it was like, hey, your group's doing 0. I'd love to monetize it for you and send you a royalty check every month. Now imagine that to somebody who's doing nothing and has no time and can't catch up on it, and I'm going to make you look good and pump value into your community and add something to it, and you'll get a royalty check and you don't have to do anything, right? That's the value, right? So that's how you get people to turn over assets, both in the real world and digitally. Why would somebody just turn over a house to you? Because their assets become a liability, right? Right? Like if it maybe like it's got damages and repairs, and they can't turn it into cash flow. So that's why, like, over time, assets can easily become liabilities, and work and effort and those kind of things. So that's why people would happily turn over assets to you. Our man Phil says, "What's the cost to you on a deal for your 90-day challenge right now? I guess this is basically just your white label." Yeah, it's just my white label. Our hard cost is, I believe, like $800 or $900 to actually fulfill on it. That's what we're looking at on the 90-day challenge. And by the way, why I created this 90-day challenge, for those of you guys who haven't seen the post that Phil is referring to, is I get a lot of people that like are either A, starting out, or B, have like done this for a long time, but for any number of reasons are going into a new niche. And when you go into a new niche, in many ways, you start over at zero because no one knows who you are. You don't have any referrals. You don't have any testimonials. Your messaging isn't on point. And I've been inspired more and more lately by people who have built entire white label agencies. And we've got a few folks that are like pushing like $200,000 a month, entirely white labeled, meaning they're collecting net, not gross profit, but $200,000 a month, and their delivery is zero, zero. And I wanted to show you guys that I think people make this business harder than it needs to be. I'm not saying it's easy. Sometimes simple and easy are different. It's simple. And what I wanted to show you guys is that like you can take a new business and you don't need cash, you don't need all these resources. Like you literally just need a fucking laptop. I may fail in this journey, just so you guys know. It look really bad on me if all the stuff I'm teaching if I fail, but I think it can be done in 90 days, and I'm going to give it a shot. I probably have too much going on to take on something else, but I want to show you guys what's possible. It may turn into a course or like a video series later. I don't know, but we'll see where it's going. But I just want to show that it can be done for those of you guys to like kind of set a framework that like somebody can follow the basic steps and kind of follow in our footstep. Um, yeah. Okay. Cool. I love that. Yeah. I may fail, just so you guys know. Like, that's always a possibility, but I'm okay with like attempting and failing. And even if we fail, like if we get to like say $6,000 or $7,000 a month, I'm sure you guys won't hate me. Um, so, anyways, we're giving it a shot. So Florian says, oh, okay, I got a little distracted. Florian says, what's the difference between an offer and a service in the context of a marketing agency? We often hear, make an irresistible offer, or questions like, what's your offer? In the context of a marketing agency that usually has a list of services or solutions, how is an offer different? Is it just packaged differently? Or is it just the marketing message to communicate? Or does it include more services? Maybe some examples. Florian, this is the thing, like most people, by the way, present a list of services and a price next to it and think that is an offer. It is not the same thing. Okay? And I'll give you the easiest way to wrap your head around this. Imagine, for an example, you own a restaurant. I know you don't actually own a restaurant, or I'm assuming you don't own a restaurant, I should say. But for example, if you run a restaurant, your service is that you provide meals to people and you provide experience, right? They come sit down at your place and they have a nice, good place. That is your service. We provide great meals. Okay? Your offer is like, what are you going to actually do for a specific amount of money? So an offer is like, come on down and we got all you can eat barbecue ribs for $16.99, a side of cornbread, some baked beans, and a baked potato, and we got a live band, and you can get all you can eat ribs for $16.99. That's a fucking offer. And when you nail the offer part of it right, like for this amount of money, I'll do blank. If you nail that right, where it's value stacked for the client and leveraged in terms of your delivery, your sales become downhill. I've had a few people tell me like that I've helped do this. They said they were basically swimming against the current, trying to sell their offer. And the minute they like their offer connected, it was like all of a sudden they caught the jet stream and it became easy. In fact, so those of you guys saw Mark Diodati in the group, you know, just a little bit of his story, but you know, he was trying to break through with Facebook ads for people and like having a real hard time doing it, getting anybody to buy it. And now it's like, you know, signing up 20 clients a month can barely keep up with the demand. Having team, we've had talks about teams and systems and all the back end things that are necessary to get like a lot of clients at once, which I don't recommend. I don't recommend onboarding 20 clients at once if you've never done it before and you don't have the systems and stuff in place. But it absolutely can be done. It's just stressful, just so you guys know. But having said that, that is what we want to focus on in the offer. And I'll tell you my favorite way to do this, if you're having a hard time selling your offer, is simply create like a miniature version. I saw a guy in Jeff Miller's group do this brilliantly. So he sold video editing services. And he probably, like most people, charge anywhere from like $1,000 to $5,000 a month for video editing services. And you can get all these video edited. Somebody went on a group and said, hey, I run an agency and I'm trying to create video ads, but it's kind of a pain in the ass creating the videos. Can anybody create videos? And he responded and said, I can make you videos and a thumbnail, $50 a video. Okay? And all these comments were like, hey, I'm interested in that. I'm interested in that. Like, it's an easy to say yes to first date offer, a video for $50. So what ended up happening is it probably sold 6, 7, 8 of those right there. Okay? But it's a sneaky way of selling like a $2,000 to $3,000 per month service. Because what do you think happens when somebody buys a $50 video and they like it? I'm assuming they like it. What do you think they buy more of? More videos, right? It just automatically leads into the thing. So I like to think about like what's the shortest, smallest, meaningful result you can create, and like show people it's working, and then inevitably it'll just automatically lead into more. And the way I get a lot of questions about how to price these, the way I price them is price your first date so that it automatically leads into more, right? So like for example, like if you're going to offer somebody 30 videos for $1,000 a month, and that's then if you price one video at $50, then it's like, hey, we can do 30 videos a month for you, and normally that would charge 1,500, but I'll just save you and you can do it for $1,000 a month. How does that sound, right? So automatically you want to price first dates so they lead into the big thing. But if you do that, you make your life so much easier. But where people get confused is they think their service is their offer, and it's usually not. Right? I do Facebook ads as a service, but an offer is like for a blank amount of money, like what result are you going to produce with Facebook ads? There's a huge difference, by the way. These may sound similar. Like I'll run Facebook ads for your personal injury law firm, and I'll run Facebook ads to bring you a motorcycle case, or I'll get you motorcycle case leads for $10 a piece. That's an offer, right? I'll get you motorcycle case leads for $10 a piece is an offer. I do Facebook ads as just a generic service, and most people take their generic service and think it's their offer, and as a result, they struggle to sell it. But if you think about like, give me blank amount of money and I will get blank done, and offers are usually more about what's going to get done. Services are usually more about what you're doing, right? Like if you think about it, like Facebook ads is a doing. Nobody wants the doing. After you run all these Facebook ads, like what actually gets done, they're buying the what gets done. And so offers are usually more about what gets done, and services are usually more about what you're doing to produce the gets done, right? Like if you think about weight loss, right? The offer is often like, I'll help you lose 10 pounds in the next 30 days. That's what gets done. The doing is dieting and push-ups and kettlebells, and you're only going to eat broccoli sandwiches or whatever the fuck that is, right? Like that's the doing. But if you sell the doing, if you sell like kettlebells and broccoli sandwiches and all those things, you're going to have a really hard time selling it. But if you sell the, hey, at the end of 30 days, you're going to have lost 10 pounds, then you'll have a much easier time selling your thing. And I see this done religiously, where people sell their doing and not the what gets done, and as a result, like nobody wants activity; they want the result of the activity. Last question I got on the docket, unless you guys got more. Yawar says, "What are some of the most important factors that contribute to client success in your opinion?" So I'm assuming here that like you guys have, for the purpose of this question, you figured out how to get clients, you figured out how to sell clients, you figured out how to get them into the door, and now we're talking about success after the fact, because obviously like the sales and marketing and acquisition. I think it probably comes down to just a few things. One of those is like, does your service produce results? And if the answer to that question is no, you're not going to keep people very long. I see this where people make like, we'll make social media posts for you. And like, that's a useful service in some ways for people, but you won't keep clients forever if it doesn't actually ROI and produce money. Now, having said that, people automatically assume that bigger and better ROIs keeps clients forever, and not so. By the way, I actually remember the first time I discovered this was not my own experience, but a friend of mine, he called me because he was shocked, and he said, I just took my client from $10,000 a month to $400,000 a month. So like a 40x return on investment. And I said, oh, that's amazing. And he said, yeah, but I didn't tell you the bad news. And I said, what's the bad news? He said, they fired me. And I couldn't believe it, right? Like you made them an extra $390,000 per month, like almost $5 million a year, and they let you go. And that is a thing that happens, just so you know. Okay? So like people think if I just get results, like blah blah blah. I know a lot of bros in our space. As long as you're getting some semblance of results, if you're making websites and you make good websites, if you're running SEO and you can actually rank to a certain degree, or if you're running Facebook ads or Google ads and they work and they generate phone calls to a certain extent, that's one piece of the puzzle. Okay. Second piece of the puzzle is communication. And I never understood how important this was, but a good example of this is my old house here in Mexico. I bumped into my neighbor. My neighbor's here like 1-2 months a year. He's like a snowbird. And I said, like, nice house you got there, buddy. And he said, yeah, it was the worst fucking experience of my life. And I said, worst fucking experience of your life? I said, why? And he said, well, I became really interested in this house. I bought it sight unseen, and so I sent my life savings to a stranger in Mexico. And I said, and then what happened? And he said, nobody called me, nobody texted me, I didn't get any messages, I couldn't reach anybody. And then eventually, after like 4 or 5 months, they sent me a thing in the mail. It was all in Spanish. I didn't even know what the fuck it said or what it meant. And at the end of that, he said, I said, like, what happened? And he said, well, I drove down here after a year. And I said, and then what? And he said, the house was built perfectly. Not a fucking thing wrong with it. It's a perfectly built house. But because there was zero communication for a year, do you think he was happy about that house? No. He said it was the worst fucking experience of my life. So half your job is building houses for clients. SEO, Facebook ads, websites, leads, phone calls, those kind of things. The other half of your job is communicating that you're building a house. Going, hey, it doesn't look like much, but here's your lot. Hey, your foundation's going in today. Hey, we just put up some walls. Hey, the electrical's going in. Hey, we had a little setback with the plumbing. Just let you know we got delayed a few days, but it's coming. So these are the first two pillars of keeping clients. One is results. The second is communicating those results. The third, by the way, is more about like your systems and setups, but hiring teams, delivery, SOPs, all of that. Can you build teams to do the results in one? Because if you can't, eventually you'll get burnt out and you won't be able to do it at scale. So if you can build teams and systems, you'll be able to produce results at scale. If you can't make teams and systems, everything will depend on you, and inevitably at some point you will get burnt out on this business model. Thing number 4, and this really blew my mind that this is even a thing, but it is the wow factor, the extras you build into that client relationship. And we systematize this and do this all intentionally. But a real example of this, I was consulting with a big set of lawyers in Florida, two brothers that spend an obscene amount of money. And they brought me in to do SEO, and I said, hey, just so you guys know, I don't do SEO anymore. And they said, that's exactly why we want to consult with you, because you don't have a horse in the race. You're not trying to sell us something, so you can give us a no bullshit approach. And so we sat down there, and what I eventually realized is these guys spent the most amount of money on everything, but they were like last in their SEO. And I was like, why are you guys paying this much for SEO that isn't working? And his answer kind of surprised me, because he said, well, we go golfing together. And I quickly did math, by the way. This company charged them $10,000 a month for they weren't ranking, and they had been employed for 10 years. And I did math. $10,000 a month is $120,000 a year. It is $1.2 million that they have paid this SEO agency to not rank. And his reason is because we're golfing buddies. So the extras you do to build client relationships can keep people paying you a long time. They'd rather deal, the saying, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't. Even if that person's like not the greatest SEO person, if they can see him, if they can shake their hands, if they like him, if they feel like family, those stuff. So those are the 4 things that make for client success in this business. Do you get results of some kind? How do you communicate? And almost you want to think about over communicating. Team systems, can you do it at scale? And then you build in some extra wow. You do those things, clients will stay and pay you for years. And by the way, part of the reason, just so you guys know, I hate posting Stripe screenshots of like, look how much gazillion money we made. Because I think it brings in the wrong kind of person. There's a lot of what I call like bro marketers in our space that are all like, gotta get booked appointments, bro, booked appointments. And I can tell by just listening to at least some of them that they've never fucking ran an agency in their life. Real businesses don't brag about screenshots, and I'll tell you why. Because they keep their clients happy. And it doesn't make sense that you go, here's payment number 37 we got of a client. They just renewed for a 4th year. Like you don't post that. You just don't, right? Like bros who sell and churn and burn through clients, they post Stripe screenshots. But like real businesses that keep clients don't do that. Nobody says like, here's payment number 72 from a client. You just don't, right? Like you just don't. It's not a thing. And so you want to pay attention to like people who have real teams and systems. And I'll tell you why. Okay? This is what the income looks like of the bro marketers. The bro marketers, they're like, get the booked appointments, bro. Just fucking sell. Is they sign clients, and then like 3-4 months later, those clients drop off, and like half of them are go, you're a fucking scammer. Give me a refund. And so every 3-4 months, if your clients leave every 3-4 months, what do you think happens in 90 days or 120 days? you're back at zero. And 120 days later, back at zero. And you got to constantly fucking put new leads into the pipeline, and your machine never builds any momentum. But guess what happens if you keep clients? Like, let's say you only get 3 clients in your first year, but at the end of the year, they're still with you. And then you figure out how to get like 6 or 10 the next year. Let's say 10. Now you're at like 13, right? So what happens is your income like continuously creeps forward. Like churn is actually the most important number in an agency. People think it's sales, and I get why it's the sexy one, but churn is actually the single most important metric. I would put, if I had to put my money on a business that was great at keeping clients or one that was great at selling them, I'll bet the farm on the one that's keeping them to stay in business longer and be more successful over the long term than the ones who just like do a lot of bro selling. So I say that as a cautionary tale because there are a lot of bro marketers like just get the fucking booked appointments, bro, man, booked appointments, everything. You have success in your agency. How many booked appointments? How full is your fucking calendar? And it's pure fucking nonsense. Nobody who actually really runs this business like would actually measure their entire life based on booked appointments. If you actually want to be in business and have like a sellable asset in the end, if not saying you do have to sell, but it's all about longevity of clients. I'm not saying I got all this figured out. I actually made a shit ton of mistakes on all of this over years. So like that's the only reason I can talk about this because I've actually like literally every client mistake I've made. Um, but having said that, like it is a fact that our oldest client has been with us since 2009. I actually just sent him a message since this morning. It's 2023, so we're going on like 14 years of working together. And I'll tell you that has made my life a lot easier. Like my income and my cash is not this wavy, crazy mess all the time that it once was because I at least know that like you can actually start to project almost like a job. Like, you know, in a job, like how you get a paycheck every Friday. And one of the hardest parts of entrepreneurship is that you don't know how much money is going to be there in the future. But when you fix churn, you can actually like look 6 months out, 12 months out, 18 months out. Like this is how much we expect our revenue to be and be fairly accurate in that number, even if you don't do anything. And so that's why this is such an important metric. And I would urge you guys to like not telling you guys what to do because I think there's some awesome people in our space too. Like I think there's some really smart minds. We got some awesome ones in this group. I'm a big fan of Josh Nelson, Jeff Miller, Dennis Yu. We got some other agency owners that aren't necessarily teaching folks how to do it, but run killer bitchin' fucking like multi-million-dollar pushing 8 figures kind of agencies that don't really sing their own tunes. But we got some of those folks in this group, and all I'm saying is like just be careful of these bro marketers. I'm telling you, like there's a few of them I follow on YouTube and I'm positive, like positive, just from hearing a few of their videos, they've never ran this business for one day in their life. They sell the concept of it without actually having done it, and that's a dangerous place to follow advice. It's like learning how to cook from a person who's never cooked. It's like learning how to build concrete from someone who has a theoretical understanding of building concrete. So don't get caught up in the booked appointment hype. It's nonsense. It's fucking nonsense. Focus on like the basics and the fundamentals are usually kind of fucking boring. But if you do the boring shit over and over and over, it has a cumulative effect over time. Like for example, we send a lot of our clients gifts and shit in the mail. It's not like I send them one letter and that client is magically in love with me. But if I do that month after month and I'm always thinking of them and I'm always like building that relationship, watch what happens in 2-3 years. Right? They're still staying and paying you for a long ass time. So it's a little bit of a rant, but I hope that's helpful to you guys because I think a lot of our whole industry is focused on the wrong shit, and it steers a lot of beginners in the wrong direction. Because I understand like most beginners are just trying to get clients and they're broke, and so they obsess about booked appointments. Even that, I'll tell you, as somebody who's like got a lot of booked appointments long before we even had a fucking term, even before they were called booked appointments, when like somebody just showed up on your calendar, 100 booked appointments is not automatically better than 6, right? Like if you get 100 broke people on the phone and you get 6 fucking players in your industry, I'll take 6 players over 100 broke motherfuckers, right? So it's like it's not like it's not all about the booked appointment. You want to the hidden metric in all of this is what I call client selection, which is really simple, is are the right people coming through the system? Are you getting the right clients to sign up? Are the right people staying with you? Are you building relationships? Are you guys growing together? Is your income going up? Are the prices of your service going up? Are you getting more confident as you do it? That all is a function of having the right people come through the system. If you focus on that hidden metric, like are the right people coming through, and get away from all the vanity bullshit of like how many booked appointments I got and all the I generated this many fucking leads and I got a web and all the like marketer hype, you'll build a better business that like it makes more money in the short term and has more longevity. So I hope that's helpful to you guys. I know it's a little bit of a rant. As I mentioned above in the comments, since we're out of questions, I put a link to our Loom conversion machine. It's like the self-paced version for those of you guys who are interested. And the deeper idea behind it that I mentioned is I believe in having assets do your heavy lifting, right? I struggled with years with like being able to sell my shit, and then eventually I cracked it, and then I struggled with trying to bring in salespeople. And even when I cracked that, there were a lot of reasons why managing salespeople is hard because they have off days, they quit sometimes, they want to go do their own thing. Um, uh, I'm not feeling well this morning, and there's all these reasons like managing people is hard. My videos never fucking take a day off ever, ever. And I can deliver them like clockwork. And the simple switch that I made internally here is that I wanted my assets to convert, not my salesmanship. And in order to do that, I had to make the offer part of it. That's a little bit of the secret sauce of it, is I had to make the offer be doing the selling, not the salesperson, not the convincing stuff, not all the things everybody says. I know Alex Hermosi did the whole like $100 million offers, but before a few years ago, most people didn't realize it was the offer. And for years, by the way, this drove me fucking crazy because I would go to like a bunch of masterminds and conferences and events, and I would always like intentionally start up a conversation with the most successful person there, and I'd say like you guys blew your shit up. What did you do? Like what worked for you? And they would say, oh, it's once we got our offer working, it's that. And then I would say, like, how did you come up with the offer? What was your methodology? What was your thing? What's important in an offer? And nobody could ever quantify it. Nobody could ever explain to me. Like, I knew it was the offer, but nobody could tell me how to make one. Nobody could tell me like a process to go from not having an offer to having an offer, and it drove me fucking crazy. And part of like what's in the Loom self-paced workshop is the actual process for how you can walk into any market, understand what they need and want in like 20 minutes of research, and come up with like an irresistible offer around it and give it to them. And then all of a sudden you're like, sales are downhill. And so I want to show you guys that deeper methodology and then cloning yourself in assets. And then what'll happen is your whole business becomes more scalable, right? Because even when I take a day off, my video is still selling. I can be at the beach with the family, my video is still selling. I want you guys to really like understand what that means. So if you guys are interested in learning how to do that, I made it like super cheap for you guys. Check it out. Put a link for you. If you're not, that's cool too. That's all I got for you guys now. I think an hour of this Big Daddy's rant. Appreciate the 5 of you who all made it to the end. You guys are fucking troopers. You guys are the best. And much love to you guys. And may the force be with you.
Hey guys, if you like this video, you'll probably also like our free Facebook group, Beyond Agency Profits, Agency Lifestyle Design. You can get free copies of the book inside here. I look ridiculous. We're doing weekly Q&As, giving answers to all your questions. Some of the best, smartest, brightest people. We've got lots of industry leaders doing 7, 8 figures and beyond. It's a literal who's who of the brightest agency owners that I know, as well as lots of tips on scaling and stuff, books that work. So if you're not already part of it, you're going to want to be part of it. So make sure to click the link. I put it in the description of the video as well as in the pinned top comment below. So just scroll down and you can join, and it's totally free.